You can't what?
I can't
Navigate around the map without the excessive amount of markers on it.
How old are you?
6.
Welcome to the colony.
Hi all, it's me. The 2023 is about to end, and for what it's worth, it was just another episode of the bedtime arc started in 2020. But let's just not focus on some bad things revolving around the globe. Let's just focus on something cheerful, something that should bring us joy and happiness like it always did. Guys, I'm sorta getting a strange taste in my mouth. Is it microplastic? Companies are aiming to create big games, and so far it's mostly big failures. And what's the root cause of all this? Is it bad management strategy? Is it a lack of ideas? Well, I hate to bring it to you guys, but it's us. We saw great open world games like Witcher 3, Red Dead Redemption 2, and we liked it. We got so into the open world games that gaming companies now think that it should be the standard. Most of the times though, these open world games are completely soulless and everything looks the same. In my opinion, people should stop making big games and focus on creating something small and detailed, like the game that I'm going to talk about today. Gothic is one of those old games. It was released in 2001 by the German studio called Piranha Bytes. While it's not that well known in the West, it is rather famous in Germany and, for some reason, many Slavic countries. The reception of the game was actually alright, but it was criticized for having difficult controls and high system requirements. Criticism, however, didn't stop the developers to deliver next 2 parts. Surprisingly enough is that when we look at the critics' reviews for this game, we might be shocked by the fact that it is still breathing, gets ported on Nintendo Switch, and THQ Nordic is planning to make a full-blown remake of it in 2024. Oh, what's this? 7.2 out of 10? Uh-oh, doesn't look good. Do you know what another game got 7 out of 10 from GameSpot?
You may need to upgrade your PC for this game.
It's indeed fascinating that in the old days, a game that received a 7 out of 10 was considered a good game, but if any game gets a 7 out of 10 today, it essentially means that you would rather watch a frame-by-frame analysis of the Fly episode from Breaking Bad than play this piece of garbage. Personally for me, this game is a great part of my childhood. When everybody was playing Morrowind, I was playing Gothic. When Oblivion came out, I was playing Gothic 3, where 3 was actually the amount of FPS I had on my Nvidia FX 5200. Seriously, in Gothic 3 my favorite zone was the desert, because there I could have at least 10 consistent FPS, because, that was desert. There are not so many 3D models in the desert. But it still was fun, and it was teaching me to get good, because what's the best motivator for getting better at a video game than a 30-minute loading screen in case you fail at any point? I'm not exaggerating. So today I'm gonna walk you through this game so you could see its best and its worst parts. With that, let us play the intro as we jump into the story of the nameless hero in the Valley of Mines.
The kingdom of Murtana, united by King Robar II. During the long years of his reign, he was able to defeat all foes of his realm. All except one.
Orcs is the biggest and the strongest. Orcs is meant for fighting and winning. Let me out of here. Nothing can stand in my way. On to big bucks.
So, the war with orcs has been proven a rather difficult task, so that the king decided to use the strongest weapon he had in the arsenal, the free labor. Therefore, whoever snitched a sweet roll from their neighbor was getting a one-way trip to the island of Corinus. There they could prove their love for the motherland by mining shiny rocks that are used to produce weapons. Among those convicts was our hero, the man who erased his name. Now we don't know exactly what nameless hero got sent to the colony for in the first place, but let's just hope that he didn't got there for being too curious like some other fellas.
Why'd they put you in here anyway? Do you like animals as well? They're not into that one bit. That's why they locked me in here.
The cutscene shows us the moment before our hero gets thrown to the colony behind the barrier. Alright, the barrier. So basically there's this giant magic dome around the whole area of so-called Valley of Mines. Since Robert obviously didn't want any convicts to escape the colony, he ordered mages to cast a magic spell that would create a barrier around the mines that will turn every living being into strawberry flavor whey powder if they ever decide to go through it. But at the same time, pretty much as with the gym membership, it's quite easy to get into the barrier, while it's impossible to get out. Mages agreed to cast the spell, but something went wrong. So instead of casting an itsy bitsy tiny barrier bringing horrible and painful deaths to everything that lives, they accidentally made it a lot bigger, and what's more horrible, they got enslaved in it as well. They must have deployed it on Friday. The original plan was to separate the convicts from the king's people, but since now everybody got under the same barrier, it didn't take long enough before convicts have taken the power into their own hands. Since Robert doesn't have any control over the convicts anymore, he decided to negotiate. He proposed to send food, booze, women, and new gaming consoles to the colony every month. He would have also sent the games, of course, if there were any. Convicts in exchange should send him the mind magic ore so that the king could continue his Minecraft speedruns.
Why can't I do this?
Crafting.
I need stone for that, right?
Crafting.
Yes, then I could have done it from the start. But I am
King Robar II.
And now I don't have wood.
Both sides agreed to the terms, and former prisoners have established a libertarian community within the castle in the middle of the valley. So where were we? Alright, the nameless hero is being trialed for his crimes before getting sent to the colony. The moment before he gets thrown into the barrier, the Mage of Fire shows up and asks the convict to deliver a very important message to the leader of the Magicians of Fire inside the castle. Nameless politely refuses first, but then finally agrees when Fire Mage tells him that he will receive a 2B action figure as a reward.
Very well, I'll take your letter.
Guards do a "This is Sparta" kick, and our hero falls into the lake behind the barrier. Being bad as it is, he also gets immediately abused by the fans of anime One Punch Man.
Welcome to the colony.
Oh, fuck. I can't believe you've done this.
Shortly after, we hear another voice, asking to leave the nameless hero be, and telling us to get up. We stand up from the ground, and that's where the game finally begins.
I'm Diego.
I'm
not interested in who you are.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine.
We ask Diego why did he save us, and he replies that it was just because we needed help. Such a wholesome guy. He warns us that the life in the colony isn't exactly the nicest, so he suggests our ragamuffin to join one of the camps. Specifically, he recommends the old camp, which was the first one within the colony. There are in total 3 camps, but judging by the words of Diego, the other 2 are filled with delusional douchebags, and therefore they don't really worth our precious time. I really like how our Spanish friend thinks that we are a totally fine guy by just talking to us for a minute. I mean, look at this face. That's the face of a savage, a war criminal, a Discord server admin. I would have not taken the responsibility if I were you, Diego. We then also mentioned that we have a letter for the Magicians of Fire, to what our friend advises us to keep quiet about it, since anybody would simply kill us for this letter. The reason for it is that mages are given all kinds of rewards to whoever brings them news from the outside world, and the minimum wages within the colony are approaching negative numbers. One way or another, our sorry ass can't even collect the reward, because only members of the old camp are allowed inside the castle where the mages are. We ask an obvious question about what do we need to do in order to join the old camp, and Diego sends us to the man called Taurus so that he could explain us the requirements. Without having anything better to do, we say goodbye to Diego and the chapter 1 begins.
We'll meet in the old camp.
Now, to any of you who already played this game, you might see that my version is a bit different. It's just because I decided to install a couple of graphics mods from the Steam Workshop, so you could enjoy the game in better quality. The graphics otherwise looks like the photos from overpriced Android phones. If you recall, the game was criticized for having difficult controls, but I would say that controls not really difficult, they're just utterly stupid. For instance, in order to pick something up from the ground, you would logically press the action key, which is by default the left mouse button. But if you click it, nothing happens. Why? Because you would also need to click the up arrow key or W afterwards. Why? Because why wouldn't you? Isn't it the first thing that comes into your mind? And it refers to anything that is related to actions, picking stuff up from the ground, interacting with NPCs, opening chests, and sitting in the barrel. Some might even say that these controls are unbarrelable. Love. Oh, come on, but at least fighting is just clicking the left mouse button, right? How much more complicated can it possibly be? So So in order for you to hit, you would also need to click the left mouse button and then the up arrow key or W, but hold on, you can also use the left and the right controls to attack, and those would be completely different punches. There is even a way to cheese it. If you keep up with the rhythm and use the left and right keys sequentially, you might even have no chance for your opponent to hit you at all. Fighting meatbugs, by the way, is absolutely the worst, because they're just so small and you cannot hit them most of the time. This is not due to the absence of a weapon, it really do be like this all the time. However, even with the crappy controls, this game has good parts. I mean, look at this view at least. Gorgeous! On our way to the old camp, we pick up our first weapons and find a couple of enemies, which are Mole Rat, a large rat, and a Scavenger, a large chicken. After defeating them, we meet up with not just anybody, but Arthur Morgan himself.
Hey you,
What do you want?
I want to warn you, if you continue this way, you'll be entering our hunting ground.
He warns us that everything that lives under the barrier is emotionally invested in annihilating us in a sadistic manner. To survive, we would need to have something more than a rusty sword and little clothes, so he advises us to see the guy called Mordrak in the old camp. Right next to Arthur we can also find his friend.
You're hunting, aren't you?
Looks like it. What do you want?
I'm damn hungry, I want some lasagna.
He mentions that he can teach us something about the hunt, but that wouldn't be free.
A good gulp of beer will do. To start with, then we'll see.
Luckily, when I was browsing the starting zone for loot, I found a bottle of Zuber beer that had been lying on the ground for God knows how long. We propose a bottle of liquid gold to our friend and he chugs it like a champ. Then our guy is ready to share some hunter wisdom with us.
Not every pee-pee time is a poo-poo time.
I mean, that's not what he said originally, but it's just as obvious. He told us that to hunt down a pack of scavengers, we should try to take them out one by one, and not rush and do it in a single combat. He can also teach us on how to skin an animal and take their claws and teeth out, so that we can make a good money by selling them. By the way, leveling up. So in this game, you earn experience points by doing quests and killing things. After you get a specific amount of XP, you level up, just like any game. Each level grants you with 10 skill points, which you can then spend on whatever you like. For instance, skinning an animal skill would cost you 1 skill point and 100 ore nuggets. Yeah, since money don't mean anything around here, everybody's just using ore nuggets. The same principle applies for your main characteristic like strength, dexterity, mana and weapon skills. The only difference is that you wouldn't always need the ore to learn stuff. Then, when you progress, you would require to put more skill points to boost your characteristics. For example, you may pay 5 skill points for 5 strength now, but when you get to a certain amount of strength, then you would need to pay 10 points for the same amount instead. It is also possible to boost your characteristics by drinking permanent potions and by wearing rings and amulets. At this point we are too poor and stupid to even think about learning anything, so we just instead say, nah, I'm good. Coming closer to the old camp, we notice the cave that is guarded by 3 mole rats. As any reasonable person who is familiar with RPGs and who sees a guarded cave, I went neuron activation mode. To claim the Sword of Thousand Truths that is definitely placed by kind German developers inside this cave, I ate some blueberries and polished it with some schnapps. Then, after dying a couple of times, and yeah, I did die, but only because these were the special mole rats that can climb trees. As my honestly earned reward, I found a couple of mushrooms and, well, that's actually it. I'm not mad since, you see, this game actually values immersion. Like in real life, not every cave contains a sacred ancient artifacts. And I sure believe that when astronauts landed the moon and didn't find magic alien blasters, they still had fun, yeah? So come on guys, game of the year 10 out of 10, best experience. Regarding the ratings though, I decided that from now on I'm going to rate every cave I encounter in this game. So, even though this particular cave was totally an immersive experience, I rate this cave 2 out of 10, where I give 1 point for it being a fun little encounter on my way to the old camp, and then another point is for mole rats that can climb trees. Moving on. So we have finally reached the old camp entrance and we are about to pass the security check. The guard of the old camp is asking us what's our business in there.
To the camp.
You ain't come to make trouble, have you?
Sure, I plan to take on the whole camp.
Hey, this guy's funny. I don't like funny guys.
Get away!
Alright, I forgot I'm useless. See, the cave encounter brought me some courage that I can actually do anything I want. But apparently I still have a long way for becoming the boss of the gym. We reload the safe and speak to Guard once again. This time, instead of being a goofy goober, we're saying that Diego is waiting for us in the camp, and Guard lets us through.
Okay, in you go then.
We go inside the old camp, the fortress of the Paladins, which is now taken by former convicts. What challenges await us there? What reliable friends we're going to encounter? All of that we shall find out in the next episode of TLDP. Thanks for watching! I hope you liked the video. And if not, it's understandable, that's literally my first attempt at creating videos. If I won't get cyberbullied by you guys in the comments, then expect the next episode to come out as soon as possible. If you're still watching this video in 2023, then I wish you a happy upcoming new year. Hopefully 2024 will finally be an okay one. Stay cool, see you soon.